love me for my ambition.
Welcome to Club Ambition Podcast, a.k.a. Cap, from Rhode Island to the world. Victor Baez, your host. We have a special exclusive interview episode this week. With us, we have the actual colonel, the chief of police of Providence, the Providence Police, chief of police here in Rhode Island. Round of applause. You know what I'm saying? We got him in the building. Had to get him through.
We don't have the round of applause today.
Thank you for coming through. Thank you for visiting the studio. We've been dying to kind of get you not just on here, but develop a relationship where if you guys are in the news for anything, you want to clear anything up, the same way people visit WPRI, Turn to 10, ABC6, shout out to them. You know, we got friends over there, especially the young journalists over there. They love us. But podcast is where it's at. And since we have, you know, the biggest podcast of Rhode Island, I feel like it's our responsibility to develop some sort of, you know, form of communication with the most important organizations in the state. And Providence Police is up on that list. But for those who don't know, let's give them the background. First, state your name.
Yeah, Oscar Perez. But first and foremost, thank you, Victor, and Noel for allowing me to come here today, this morning. I think it's a privilege, and it's also for me, actually, I feel proud to know that there's some young man that, you know, is creating some sort of communication with our young residents of the city, as well as, you know, providing that info that is necessary. So thank you. Yeah, so my name's Oscar Perez. I'm the chief of police for the city of Providence. A little background about myself, born and raised in Medellin, Colombia. Came here at the age of 14 years old. I came with my dad. Lived in South Providence, and then, went to Roger Williams Middle School, then went to Central High School, Go Knights, ended up graduating from the high school and, was playing sports in the city, boxing, at a local boxing club at Prairie Avenue. And so years later, joined the force, went through a whole journey.
What year did you join the force?
I joined the force in 1994. I know you weren't born then, huh?
Yeah, that was 4 years before I was born. My God.
Yeah, so, 94, and it was, South Providence was totally different. The whole city of Providence was different, and so here I am, and the chief of police, man. It's a privilege. It's a proud moment. It's, first Latino in the history of the department to take lead, and so got a lot of work to do, so I love it.
How old are you now?
Listen, man, you're going to answer those questions really? So,
I'll tell you my age.
I'm about 55.
55.
Yeah.
I'm 20. I'm 27. 55. Well, you don't look 55.
I appreciate it, man.
You don't look 55, Chief. You don't look 55.
My wife listening?
Yeah, you don't look 55. My math is not that great, so I was like, I couldn't calculate myself off the top of my head. So when did you become this actual role?
So about 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago.
I was a major in charge of the administration. I've been in charge of internal affairs. I was in detectives. I was in the narcotics unit. I worked undercover. I was in the gang unit. I was in the patrol division, community policing. But 2.5 years ago, I took the role of the chief of police. Yeah.
And for those who don't know, what's the difference between a regular officer and a chief of police? What's the
yes
difference?
Or no? I mean, when you first start, you're an entry-level officer. You're in charge of a post. You usually, if you're new, you usually start in the third shift. That's the shift that you usually get. And then, you're in charge of a certain area depending on what district you work in. We have 9 districts in the city, and they're all commanded by a lieutenant. And under his command, you have, sergeants, and you have patrol officers, men and women. And so you have a certain area, you answer calls, you respond to those calls, you back up officers, and you also, kind of keeping that in mind of that community policing philosophy, as well as staying proactive in your area of responsibility.
Yeah.
As chief of police, you're in charge of the department, you're in charge of the discipline, you're in charge of the budget, you're in charge, you're in a sense sort of the person that the buck stops with you. You make those decisions, in charge of training, in charge of accountability, promotions, discipline, technology, innovations of the department, looking at what strategies other departments are using, and making sure that we put the Providence Police Department on that platform that it deserves. And so, that's as a chief of police, you're in charge of the administrative aspects as well as the operational aspects of any police department.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's a very big role. And then how does it work? Do you have like a specific limit that you can be the chief of police for, or can you just?
No, so I mean, I age out for the department in the command staff. You can actually stay all the way to like 68 years old, which definitely I want to enjoy my life at some point. But yeah, no, I think that it all depends. Obviously, it all depends on how the chief wants to stay for how long. I could stay for till then, 55.
Do you see yourself staying long?
Yeah, I definitely I enjoyed the job. I enjoyed the challenges. it's a responsibility, as you stated.
Yeah.
But I think that, especially being, like I said earlier, I'm proud of the fact that I'm the first person of color to lead the department. And so I want to make sure that I leave it better than it was. I've had some great people that I work for, but I think that I have my own legacy to leave behind. As you know, the city is phenomenal. I work for a great mayor. He really cares and has a priority for the city when it comes to the quality of life, which is the same thoughts that I have. And so I think we're moving in the right direction. Crime is down, robberies are down. We've only had one homicide that was actually found to be in self-defense. So here we are in August, and we're doing pretty good. And for me, it's important to remember that because there's a lot of great people in the city. I would say there are 190,000 people in the city that live. They care about the city. We have a diverse community, inclusive community, and so we know for a fact that it's good for them. I want to make sure that every kid in the city has the opportunities that I had. And in order to do that, you got to keep a city safe. And so.
Yeah. And what would you say is the biggest difference, you being here in Providence so long, from a child living in Providence to now being the chief of police of Providence Police Department? What would you say is the biggest difference you've seen in the city?
Definitely the changes of safety, I think I'll tell you, and also the changes in the department itself. I came in 1994. Yeah. Policing was traditional. You put handcuffs on somebody, and that was the end of it. That's it. Arrest, move on. We moved to really believing in the community policing philosophy, technology, which comes, legitimizing the department, trusting our residents, building that trust, building legitimacy, improving the department, community policing, the wellness of our offices, education of our offices, professionalism, making sure your policies are up to date. And so it's changed a lot, evolved. The police department has evolved. Again, 94 traditional to 2025, it's changed so much. Definitely also the city itself has changed. In the 80s, when I first came to South Providence or Providence, was predominantly African-American community. There was not many Dominicans. I mean, people that I grew up with were from the black community. And so you fast forward, Broad Street now is predominantly Dominican-owned businesses.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's changed. The east side of Providence, Cranston, downtown, evolve. The city's great. I mean, I think that I've seen a lot of changes, and I'm proud to say that I enjoy public service. Done it for 32 years almost, and I still love putting my pins on my shirts.
And you say that compared to back then, your time as an officer to now chief of police, you would say right now the department's the best it's been, in your opinion, from then. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's evolved so much that the mentality of our offices, the training of our officers is up here. We train on cultural competency. We train on understanding the social challenges that people face. I've always said the Providence Police, and I respect anybody that puts a uniform on, but we're second to none. I talk to friends of mine who are deputy inspectors in NYPD, Miami police chiefs, Dallas police chiefs, and when I talk about what we do here in Providence, they're like, wow, that's interesting. You guys do all that? And it's all innovation technology. So, yeah, I'm proud to say that the department has moved to a whole different level, especially when I first came on. Yeah. We used to walk around with wooden sticks in our hands. That's when I first came on. My radio was a brick. And like I said, it was almost, you give an order and that was it. Now we get into talking to people, de-escalation, all that good stuff. So
yeah. So what would you compare? How would you compare yourself to the other departments in Rhode Island? Cranston Police, Johnson Police. I feel like us being regular citizens here, residents here in Rhode Island, I feel like we just naturally always more scared of Johnston Police.
East Providence
has always been so strict. It's it feels like they're more oh my God. Yeah. Cranston Police though are pretty, I don't know, stereotypically we just feel an instinct of oh my God, with Cranston Police. With Providence Police, I would say is more, it's in the middle. It doesn't come off too strict to us. You know what I'm saying? Is that intentional? What would you say? What's your opinion on that? In the inside looking out.
Yeah, and I definitely can't speak about other departments, but I can talk about the Providence Police, and I'll tell you that we train very strongly in the academy. We train our own in Providence. Myself, I come in and teach at the academy. All our officers with doctor's degrees, bachelor's degree, master's degree, come in and teach all Providence police officers, and sometimes we use academics. But I think the key for us is that we're extremely diverse department. I got about 190 officers that speak another language. That's huge.
Wow.
We have a lot of officers that grew up in the city of Providence. And people don't know that. I've always said it, and I'll use J Balvin's words where he said, everybody knows the glory, but they don't know the story. And so there's a lot of cops that grew up in the city that truly understand. We'll go to a Dominican house or a Puerto Rican house or even a Nigerian house where they're, unfortunately, someone died in their family. Nigerians like to party for 2 weeks. We understand that because, in the sense that that's how they're going to say, goodbye to their loved ones.
Yes.
The Asian community, same thing.
Yeah.
Whether you're Laos, Cambodian, Hmong, you truly understand what that community is about. And I think with us, Dominicans, we go to a house, a Puerto Rican party, for example. I've always said it. You got, grandpa may be wilding out, and they're yelling and screaming. A cop comes in, he doesn't understand. The next thing you know, you're grabbing potentially the grandfather. Every other grandchild is going to jump on that cop, and we're just loud. Hispanic people are loud. And so I think the training, the understanding of the social, and the cultural competency that happens in our city and the diversity de-escalates a lot of stuff. Obviously, many times we have to use force. It's part of the job. I've always said it's never pretty, and we have to, because when you give an order, you expect people to, follow it. And I've always said it that, the actions of your municipal police department are going to depend very much on your actions. Depends, because, at the end of the day, we pull someone over. We're asking for a license and registration, and that's the end of it. We don't know if the person just killed his wife, if he robbed the bank. We don't know. We're just pulling someone over. And so stuff like that our officers are well-trained, and I think that's the difference. The well-training, the cultural competency that we push on them, and again, the diversity in our department. People that grew up in the city, they wanted police. I'll give you an example. We had a recruitment process recently. I had 400 people apply for the job. If you look at other municipalities, they're only getting 5, 10, 20, 30 people. That says a lot to me. That says that people in our city want to be cops in Providence. And so that's really
400 is a lot.
That is actually
That's actually a lot. That's a lot. That's a big number.
Because back in the day, it was 3,000. When I applied, it was 3,000 people. 400 is a good number.
Wow. Yeah. And recently, there was a viral video across social media where there was cops that pulled over. It was out of state somewhere. They pulled over some, I think, 2 women in a car, and then when they went inside the trunk and they grabbed the bag, and unfortunately there was like a dead child in it, right? And the cops were crying, emotionally moved, going crazy. What has been, in your experience, either as chief of police or prior, just as an officer here in Providence, what's been the most, tragic or the craziest moment that you've experienced that's literally maybe even moved you emotionally, for those who don't know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, in 32 years, I've seen a lot, and you get some officers actually get traumatized about that stuff. And,
yeah.
And then so, I mean, to me, I think that I've been able to handle it. I have my other hobbies when I lead this job and things like that. But you feel bad for the families. You feel bad for someone that lost their lives. We've had brother officers that got killed on the line of duty, and also that's hurtful. So we've had
Is there one example that stands out? Anything? Maybe like one story that you could recall?
I mean, I don't want to cry on this show. Hold on a second.
Feel free to. No judgment here. I was crying yesterday.
No, not here. But I do remember a young female that actually got sexually assaulted, and I was young on the job. And
how old were you?
I was probably my second year on the job, and I was working the Chad Brown area of the city. I was young. I was like 26 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, I remember I drove by the female I had, a relationship with in the sense that I worked in the area saying hello. I remember the kid, and I saw her crying at the door, but I wasn't sure why she was crying. And so I asked her what happened, and she said that, it's my daughter got assaulted. And I was like, oh, unbelievable. So I'm taking the police report, and I'm like, where is she? And she says she's in the room, and I'm like, where's the guy? He goes, he's there too. And I was like, what? And so we went in, and we ended up making the arrest, but there was no, it was Christmas, and there was no gifts in the house.
Wow.
So yeah, we all the officers got together, and they ended up collecting money and buying her a gift. So
wow,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Listen, man, it's stories like that I think are significant as well, because in the midst of everything, we criticize a lot of stuff that you guys do. We call out things that we complain about, but then there are moments like that I always wondered, especially when I saw that video recently that went viral. I was like, wow, that's pretty insane, because the cops were like almost like vomiting, like they felt like they had the urge to vomit, like they were just so emotionally moved by the idea of obviously a dead body in a trunk of a car. Like that shit was crazy. Like, so I can only imagine the trauma. What is one of the things that you as chief of police maybe advise or give to, let's say, a fellow officer that might be going through something traumatic, or maybe like they're emotionally like, yo, like, chief, like I just had a rough day, or chief, like this has been very tough for me? What's something that you've done for them to maybe help them in that situation?
So yeah, we have a peer support group. Actually, we have a peer support group of officers who are well trained. We send them away to get trained. We have a psychologist that is actually assigned to the police department, and so we'll refer that officer to make sure that he or she gets the right assistance. Listen, at the end of the day, we're fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, uncles. This is just a uniform. Beyond this, a human being. And so, yeah, that's what we do. We make sure that they get the assistance that they need, because the last thing I want is an officer having some mental issues or mental problems or traumatic problems, being out there and providing some public service. I want to make sure our officers are 90% good, because you're gonna encounter some difficult situations. You're gonna make the right decisions. So if someone came in, and wellness is part of 21st century policing, is something that's in the back of my mind constantly. Listen, we're humans, and some people handle depression and mental health a lot different than others.
Yeah.
Some of us might have faced a lot of different circumstances and may be more used to it, make better decisions, whatever the case may be. But it is a real situation, and it happens to cops just as it happens to teachers, doctors, journalists. And so it's something that's in the back of my mind. But yeah, that's the thing. We want to make sure that they get the assistance through the peer support. And if it's something that's needed even beyond that, then we're going to find some either outpatient or inpatient to make sure that that officer gets the right assistance. It happens. Sometimes officers make decisions. They get caught on video, whatever the case may be. And sometimes as a chief, you have to make sure that you made the right decisions so that if he's disciplined or retraining or mental health assistance, that you're providing that for an officer. It happens. At the same token, if you have an officer that commits a criminal act, you got to be able to put handcuffs on that officer. It's just the nature of the profession. So
100%.
Yeah.
What is a typical day for the chief of police yourself? Run down your day to day for people from the moment you wake up. What time do you wake up?
So 5 in the morning, 5:30 or so. Yeah, and I immediately look at the activity for the night. I draft an activity sheet, and I provide it for those that need it. And and I'll make some calls to the lieutenant in charge of the third shift before I start in. Sometimes I'll go for a run. I got a gym that I go to sometimes, and there's a boxing gym in there. I love punching the bag.
Still boxing.
I'm getting old, but I like to move my hands. It's important, and it gives you that mental health that you need.
Yeah.
And then, after a run or whatever exercise, I come back home, get ready, go into work. The deputy chief and I will speak about what happened the night before or anything that's happening throughout the day. Look at the schedule, come in, figure out if there's something that was not solved the night before, if there's answers, emails that came in, someone expecting an answer from the chief on something, whether it's controversial or it's just whatever the case may be. And so we handle that. And then at that point, sometimes, we'll go to different meetings throughout the day, try to schedule the day. If something happens that is high profile, I respond to that call myself. I'll call the lieutenant, the sergeant. Sometimes there's a lot of events that happen after work, 4 or 5 o'clock. And just a normal day, but it's fast. It's a fast-paced. And on top of that, you have families. I got 2 kids that I got to talk to on the side. Obviously, the wife, make sure that she's all set. And, and then sometimes I go home sometimes at 4:30, sometimes 7, 8 o'clock. Sometimes if something really bad happens, put the uniform back on, go back out on the road, especially if, God forbid, a violent shooting happens or a homicide. I respond to those scenes. And again, and I usually take some time in my office just to sit there and think. You got to strategize of what the future is for the department. If there's any innovations that other people are using to try and implement so that we can make the department better than it was and move forward. And also, obviously, professional development for my officers. There's all kinds of things that come through a mind of a chief. I'm proactive. I think that I like the fact that I'm the chief of police, but I also enjoy making sure that I lead by example.
Yeah, and so there's definitely obviously been nights where there's been days where you don't even sleep. Have there been like 24-hour days before that you dealt with?
Only when we have real high profile incidents. And there's sometimes that if something's going on, then obviously like anything else, I'm a human. I start thinking about it, and I really have to sit there and just think okay, I'm under some palm tree. I need to go to sleep.
And how many people do you have around you as a chief of police? For those who don't know, to give perspective, as far as shout out to him, we got a staff member in here. But how many people are in your direct staff that help you?
Yeah, no, it's important. So every chief has a command staff. I have a deputy chief and I have 4 majors. And below that, I have some captains, lieutenants. It's a whole rank structure. I've always think it's a team effort. Listen, when you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you already failed. You got to have a good team around you. It's that's what wins games. That's what teams. That's when you work in a team. And so I do have that. I have the deputy chief. I have the majors. Major in charge of the uniform division, major in charge of the administrative division, a major in charge of the internal affairs, and a major in charge of detectives. And then the deputy chief. And so we all work together when something comes up, whether it is a major incident. I'll give the example of, unfortunately, the 7-year-old that got killed a year ago or so, and everybody was all hands on deck. Within 48 hours, we had somebody in handcuffs. And that's a team effort. That's work. Major events like the Dominican Festival, we plan for that. We strategize. And so it's a plan. That's what we do. That's what we do. We've been doing it for years. But it takes a team to get the job done. It's not the chief.
Yeah.
It's not the command staff. And also the men and women of the department, from the youngest officer to the most senior officer, the guy in charge, all women in charge of a district. They are the ones out there making those connections, making those relationships, meeting with the business owners, and that's what runs the department.
Yeah.
It's not the chief. Buck stops with me. I make decisions, but at the end of the day, the ship moves because the sailors make a move. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to ask you some stereotypical
Sure.
quick questions when it comes to, I feel like you would have the perfect answer for it. But for example, today I brought in donuts.
Yeah.
Right, because everyone says that the cops love donuts, the cops eat donuts. But you said you don't eat donuts?
I used to, not anymore, man. I'm telling you, I'm 55 years old. And I want to make sure that I last a little longer.
But is this really like a common thing? Do cops like eat donuts? Like, is it like a...
Nah, you know what I think it was? I remember when as a young officer, the first thing you did was to go get a coffee when you first came in work. And I think what that does is that's just, I guess you going, because, you're tired, you work the detail. And so they probably saw a lot of cops at Dunkin' Donuts, and that was like, oh, they love Dunkin' Donuts. It wasn't that. It was we need that coffee, that energy to get us moving.
Yeah.
And so in '94, that's what I remember. But a lot of cops like them. Not a lot of them. I don't see a lot of officers just, stuffing themselves with donuts. But it's just a label that cops receive, yeah.
Also,
I'm like my pastelitos. Let's get that straight.
Okay.
My empanadas.
He's a pastelito guy. But also, every time I see a cop behind me, in my mind, I'm like, oh, they're scanning my place. Is this an accurate thing? Do cops have an active scanner at all times?
No.
Like, are they actively just scanning everyone's place, even if they're behind them? Because obviously a lot of times they'll be behind me for 2 seconds, for a while, but it's maybe a combination of paranoia and also just the ignorance. We don't know, how does it really work? How does it work? Are they actively scanning all the time?
No, not necessarily. I just think, listen, it happened to me too. I grew up in South Providence. Every time I saw an officer behind me, I got nervous. Like, what's going on? I think perception for many people is reality, right?
Yeah.
That's what people think. Perception is reality. Officers act on reasonable suspicions. Before you go on the road, we have a roll call. And so many times we'll tell an officer, hey, listen, just so you know, there might have been a disturbance that occurred, or, there was a shooting that happened last night, A, B, C type of vehicle potentially involved. We have some kids from another municipality that just came down. We got a report that they drove by this location. So if you have an officer that's driving there, we expect them to be active. And I've always said that community policing and proactive policing go hand in hand. They're not exclusively, mutually exclusive. They work hand in hand. And so these officers, when they're working, they may spot something, they may see something. They could just be behind a car, not even thinking of anything. But if you see some movements on the officer, he may already be looking, potentially thinking that that's related to something else that he might have learned about, some other evidence that he had occurred. And that's the process. I did it. I consider myself to be a very proactive police officer when I was young. And I've had my share of good arrests and some foot chases. And in other municipalities, someone, using my firearm. And so I think that just comes with proactive police work, but it's always done in a professional manner and a constitutional manner, because you have to justify why you pulled that car over. You have to justify why you put handcuffs on somebody.
Yeah.
But I think it's perception on our citizens. I still get nervous when I see a police officer behind me.
You?
Yeah, I do.
Come on, no, Chief.
Yes, but yeah,
No.
It's part of the human nature. Did I do something wrong that I don't know about? It's just normal. It's just normal.
Me, I get nervous, but it's understandable. It's like I get nervous, and it's like I have zero reason technically, but it's just like the instinct. It's like a thing. It's like you think like, oh, is it a stereotype? Is it like are they gonna think just because the way I look, I have something in my car, even though I have nothing, but it's still a thing. I sometimes I laugh to myself like, why the fuck am I nervous right now? Like, calm down, like you're good, but it still happens. But for you, it's like, come on, like you're the chief of police.
Yeah, people are nervous. Listen, I still go to Medellin, Colombia. I walk around, no problems. I'll go to South Providence, walk around. I go to, my restaurants down there, and no problems.
Yeah.
If you bring someone else that might not be used to that, their own mindset may be like, "Oh, I'm uncomfortable for whatever they see." I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's just human biases that sometimes they're not used to certain things, or maybe the way you think. But to me, it's I'm very comfortable with certain things. Cops, I think, because my own mindset. Did I do something wrong? That is this cop behind me?
Yeah.
And you just don't realize it. I remember getting pulled over once in Orlando, and I saw this cop behind me because I was in Disney World, and he's behind me, and I'm like, what did I do? Next thing you know, he lights me up. Mm-hmm. And I pull over, and I'm like, officer, did I do something wrong? Because I was like, and he goes, no, you got your tail light out. It was a rental. I didn't even know that. And so he actually goes, and he looked at it. It was a rental. I took the car back right to the rental place, but you get nervous. It's just the nature. So
yeah. What are the orders or the actual steps that an officer in Providence has to take when it comes to pulling someone over? Like give someone like the rundown, like what they have to specifically do, say, like what are the actual steps?
Yes, when you pull someone over, depending on what factors and the reasons why the car got pulled over, whether it was a traffic violation, like I said, whether it's something that just occurred and maybe it's part of an investigation, whether it's probable cause that someone has. The steps are, if it's just a normal stop for a traffic violation, the officer's going to come up. He's going to ask for license and registration, make sure the car is registered, make sure the person has an active license. And if there was a traffic infraction, a summonses will be given, and then that'll be the end of that. If it's something else where it's connected to a potential shooting, and there's a car, for example, there's a black Honda Accord that just left a certain location, 3 people shot, detectives are on scene, and an officer's driving around. He sees a black Honda Accord with a sticker in the back of the trunk, because we don't know what the sticker, and if it's he pulls that car over. He's probably going to pull that car over protecting himself and obviously protecting people in the car. Within seconds, our officers are probably going to know if he's an old lady driving the car or if he's something that fits the description of the person that was involved. So all that stuff plays a mind into an officer. I'll tell you something. I remember, and it's funny you asked that. I remember another thing that some civilians don't realize is when an officer pulls someone over, you don't know what that officer did potentially the day before. So I remember one day that I ended up seizing a firearm on Broad Street during one of the on a Saturday night, which was extremely packed, and it was a struggle with the person. We ended up putting the person in handcuffs, and so before the person pulled over, he kind of rolled down a little bit and then pulled over. Handcuffs. Follow up the next day, I pulled another car over for sort of the same incidents. It was a fight, and I couldn't. When I came up to the car, I was shaking because I'm a human being, but it was because I was thinking that the same thing that happened the night before was going to happen again. And in reality, nothing happened. It was younger people in the car that were going home, but and they were very polite, and so I was. But when you first encounter that vehicle, in your mindset, you're thinking it's going to be related to the same incident that happened the night before. So it's a tough job. You constantly got to be on your toes. And to your earlier question about the wellness of an officer, you have to, as a boss, and our sergeants, lieutenants have to make sure they keep an eye on our officers. Yeah. But yeah, that's the process. It all depends on what the officer's facing. So,
what would you say? What would you say is the biggest? You being the chief of police of Providence, the police department in Providence. What would you say is the biggest stereotype that the Providence Police Department faces, in your opinion? What's that one stereotype that you feel like people get wrong?
The one stereotype is that that we're we're not professionals, that we're not, it's like I guess the word is, they're all racist, they all want to beat up people. I think that, and so and I totally understand because of the fact of what happened in other parts of this country, and it's incidents that have shocked the conscious. It shocks our conscious as officers, and so or an incident that happens with an officer somewhere else, and I think that's constant. But it's all education of our community. But yeah, I think the biggest stereotype, and it's interesting you say that because so I had a program at one of the middle schools where I brought officers to speak about what we do. I brought different members of the units, and there was a young female from one of our housing developments, and she didn't talk at all during the class. But at the end, she said it. She got up and says, "I gotta apologize. I stereotyped every cop that came, and it was an incident that she had at her house with a professional officer who's no longer on the forces, and this is going back years ago, with her dad." And so I think the misunderstanding is that, listen, this is a profession, and we have a lot of officers, and it's just that they put us in the same predicament as anyone else that might have did something wrong, or judgment, whatever the case may be. And so we spoke for a while, and was trying to hire her for the job, but she's still young. So.
No, yeah, I want to get your take on this because the idea of a police officer, stereotypically, especially in the Black community and Spanish community, we grow up because of, especially in this day and age, our generation, social media. There's so much trauma that we just get induced already from a young age, like the Rodney King, like the all those like the years before us, right? Those decades of historic police brutality against civilians. But then I feel like our younger generation, especially around Black Lives Matter, there was like a heightened sense of this being, like I was a part of those marches and protests. There was a heightened sense of like, oh my God, like we have to speak up as a community. But then within that, I think that, and the officers remind me all the time because they watch us, they're fans of ours, right? Especially in Providence, they always show us love. They're like, hey man, we're not all bad, we're not all bad. We're not all bad. There's bad seeds, there's bad apples in the batch. But it's something that it's crazy because what they get attached to, an officer's worst moment, let's say taking someone's life, is something that's so traumatic. It's like, whoa, that I feel like it becomes so difficult for someone to be like, man, it seems logical. Like they're not all bad. But it's so traumatic. Like we see it, online, even though if it's not constant, like from the same department, etc. It'll be across America. And let's say there's millions of officers. There might be, we don't have to look at the stats. And if you want, you can look up the stats, Noel, while you're over there, of how many police brutality type of incidents occur yearly, let's say in America alone. For people to understand, because I feel like it's something that I want to create more of a bridge between that idea, because I do stand with the people that feel like there is injustice that does happen. And I feel like officers, like shout out to the officer I spoke to this morning, he acknowledges it too. Like, there's incidences that happen, like, we can't control certain people, certain things. There's bad apples in here. But there are good people. And I would say the majority of cops are good, logically speaking, statistically speaking. But then there's these weird moments that happen. And I think what really is at fault is the idea of the role. I think there's a lot of superiority complexes. I think there'll be incidences, and I would love to get your take on this, that cops get like a ego boost, right? Like an ego high, because they have, the authority on paper, and they have the weapon, legal weapon. They can do so much. There's a lot of power, and I think there's power trips that happen where there might be a cop that mentally is not as stable as one may think. They probably have trauma they've gone through, and they want to take it out on someone, right? They want to take it out on someone. There's also, I believe, there has to have been instances of people that grow up racist, like a racist, stereotypical racist white person, and they're interested in like, okay, maybe I could be a cop, and they might want to take advantage of that role to have, authority or superiority over a minority, because I'm the boss now. I can do this. I have the power in my hand to take your life. I have the power in my hand to ruin your life, suspend your life, do so much that I think that's why the community feels the way that it feels. In reality, it should be the opposite, right? We should have a community by definition. Officers should be the stereotypical old photos and you see in the cartoons where the cops are playing basketball with the kids in the streets, saying hi to the community. And I'm pretty sure there's definitely communities like that in America, but that's not the one that it feels like. It doesn't feel like it's as much as it should be. It doesn't feel like that's the common tradition. Do you feel, what's your take on that idea? Like, do you understand why someone would say, fuck the police or those pigs? Do you understand where someone could come from, especially from a traumatic moment where they're like, an officer killed my best friend, so now it's fuck police for life? Do you understand, like, at least like where they're coming from?
100%. Listen, man, I think you touched on some great points, and you're right. It's even us, it's as officers, we're like, I can't believe that occurred. When we think about George Floyd or different incidents like Ferguson, Minneapolis, one thing that I do want to clarify is one of these things that you have 18,000 police departments in this nation. 18,000 police departments. We all have different chiefs. We all have different policies. We all have, so whatever happens in Ferguson is going to affect Providence. Whatever happened in New York City is going to affect Providence. And so whether I have no say about their policy, I have no say about their recruitment, I have no say about their training, but guess what? They're wearing a uniform, and they did something that was like, wow, right? And so it's among everybody. So, yeah, of course, that we're like, I can see why someone says, if the police, or, I can't believe that the police are all the same. And to your point about bad apples, good apples, I think at the end of the day, you have officers that have been allowed to do certain things. And at the end of the day, the buck stops with the chief. And so when you know someone's it's an issue or has had some problems, I go back to the fact that they need to be retrained, they need to be disciplined, they need to be held accountable, fired if need be, or put handcuffs on an officer. Because that's actually what you're holding people up. No different than your house when you have 4 or 5 kids, And I always said you have good officers, you have problem officers, and so you have to make sure that you stay on top of that if that's the case. And if the person doesn't belong. Just the same as you have bad teachers, bad doctors, good doctors. You have good journalists, bad journalists. It all depends on how professional the person is. And so I do understand that, but I think it's important to understand the 18,000 police department in the nation who have different bosses, different chiefs, different policies. If you think about Providence Police, we're one of 300. Out of those 18,000, we're one of 300 in the same size or bigger. So we're a pretty good-sized department. We're like second biggest in New England, besides Boston. You got Worcester, you have Springfield, probably in the same bracket. Hartford, not too far. But we deal with a lot. We're like 3 precincts of New York City. And so when you have an office, and we have an internal affairs office, that's like the heart and the pulse of your department. When you have an officer that might have did A, B, or C, and that should be calling the attention of somebody. It says, what's going on here? It may be nothing. Maybe that officer is just proactive. But if it's something where it's something that needs to be fixed, it needs to be addressed. Because the last thing any police department wants to lose is the legitimacy of the department and the trust of their community. There's no police department in this nation or in the world that will be able to do their job without the support of the community. We're 438 officers. I got about 190,000 people in the city of Providence. I need to have the support of the community.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Did you look up the stats at all or no?
Yeah. So
what's the stats of this?
ChatGPT says in 2024, U.S. law enforcement killed 1,365 people, making the highest annual total since 2013.
Jesus.
When it comes to actual cases of police brutality, like if we're talking about police misconduct, they're not giving me an exact stat, which makes sense because like it's different by every department.
It's vague. It gets vague and vague.
Because some policies are different in different departments. Like here, a certain way to arrest someone may not be viewed as police brutality, but it'd be different in New York City. But there's also like individual cases they mentioned, but that was it. They just do it by how many deaths happened.
Yeah. Have you ever had an incident where you're able to maybe spot a potential bad apple, or maybe someone that you feel like, oh, this officer, like this guy, he's going down the wrong path. Like you hear like little, maybe they haven't done anything yet, but just the energy and maybe the rhetoric, maybe certain things that they're saying. Have you ever had an incident like that before where you had to be like, yeah, we got to sit this guy down, or let me talk to this guy? Like you try to maybe take a preventative measure before it escalates to something, God forbid, that,
Well, if he's at that level, the person will be terminated. But there's times where you have warning signs, early warning signs.
Early warning
an
signs.
Officer where, maybe my mistake, maybe they could have de-escalated the situation. And so it's incidents like that where you have to like reel them in and make sure they provide them the right training. But if once it gets to a point that I think you're describing, it's to a point where like, wow, that's a that officer is suspended. More than likely, is probably going to be terminated.
Yeah.
If he reaches that level. I'm talking about more of those incidents where, we can see room and space for training.
Yeah.
Listen, it's human nature. The more professional development we get, the better we will be. Happened to me. It happened. I remember one day I was in Saki's Pizza years ago. I was brand new on the job, and I came in loud and clear. Everybody move! All right. I had a senior officer looked at me like, "Tone it down, bro." And I didn't realize that. I thought maybe that was the way to disperse a crowd. It wasn't. But I had a year on the job. And little by little, I learned. I'm not the same cop that I was when I had a year on the job. I got 32 years. I've seen it. I've seen a lot. And so when it's our responsibility as seasoned officers to train our younger officers. But when we see, just warning signs of some, not warning, I guess, of stuff that there's space for training, there's space for discipline, accountability, and we're hoping that we get the person on the right track. Because when someone takes an oath to protect and serve, this is a tough job. This is the only profession where you actually put a bulletproof vest to go to work. And so we got to make sure that we do our due diligence to hire and recruit. We can predict future behavior, but it is our responsibility to make sure that we hold people accountable so that they provide the services and the public service that the city needs. So
yeah, under the Mayor Brett Smiley, many people are very critical of Mayor Brett Smiley right now. They're saying that he has turned Providence into like a police city, right? We see that a lot. That's a lot of the online rhetoric. And you said, what was it this year that 400 people applied to try to become officers in Providence Police?
Correct. We have an academy right now that's going through. Based on that pool.
Wow. Wow. So what is your response to that, where people see this? And me personally, I see it where definitely, especially after, I want to say after pandemic, there's way more police presence. There's a heightened more police presence and intimidation to a lot of people. But then you said earlier that the crime has gone down. So you think that there's obviously a correlation to this? Like, what's your take on this? Do you agree that Smiley's made this more of like a police city?
No, what I'll tell you is that the priorities of the mayor are the priorities of the chief of police, and that's to make sure that public safety is there for our community, for our youth, for everyone that comes and entertains and lives in the city. That's the priorities of the mayor. That's the priorities of mine. And yes, the new recruit of officers has allowed myself, a police chief, to ensure that we can at least stay proactive in certain areas where we had high incidence issues, shootings. And so, yes, to the point that crime has been going down. No homicides, except for that one in the earlier of the year that actually became a self-defense case. Robberies are down. Aggravated assaults are down. Crime violence are down. We're about over 150 firearms seized year to date. We just had thousands of people at the Dominican festival. No issues other than a few arrests here and there, dispersals. And that all takes resources, and it takes resources of policing. I'll tell you this. I've been on 32 years in a job. I worked in community policing. I worked in every housing development there is. I have not yet to have someone tell me, Oscar, don't send any more cops to my street. I don't want to see any more police officers. If anything, they tell me, can you have officers on foot? Can you have an officer on a car? Can you do this? I've never had anybody call me and says, hey, I don't want to see any more cops. And so I think that, it all depends on who's saying those things. I know for a fact that there's a lot of people that compliment the work that we do and the work that we do. And we're not perfect. Listen, there's families of 5 that are not perfect. I got a family of 5 that we ain't perfect. But I tell you that it's important to make sure that a safe city is going to help the economic development of that city. It's going to have people invest in the city. When I think about South Providence, it's personal. I grew up there. When I see kids walking, when I see kids in the pools, when I see moms taking kids to their parks, playing, they feel safe. When I got a mother telling me I'm not worried about my daughter standing in the bus stop anymore. And it's the reason it's not because of me. I'm in the office. It's those cops that are riding around. And so that's important.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's a wild situation, the idea of, just your role and the perception of the people. Because people are always going to have the perception. People are going to always have the takes. I remember I saw it. I'm like, what the fuck? There's so many more cops. Like, what's going on? Like, they're everywhere. Like, they're pulling people over more, etc. But if it's, in a sense, like you're saying, statistically helping, I can see where that's definitely the mayor's goal, and he's definitely been achieving it. What would you say is something that you want to see the police department in Providence do that's new and maybe innovative within the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years that you might be working on already?
Yeah, definitely want to be a model agency when it comes to, legitimizing the department and building trust and creating partnerships like we have and continue to do. I just, I want to make an impact in public safety. And sometimes that brings technology into the picture. Sometimes that brings professional development of our officers. And so I think the key for me, or the vision for me, is to ensure that I put the Providence Police Department and the city of Providence, just as the priority of the mayor is, on that platform, that we're looked at as a model agency. I've had the privilege to actually go and speak to the Department of Justice as far as some of the stuff that we're doing here, innovations, creating certain partnerships and community policing in certain neighborhoods. And so I think that's the key, to be able to put the Providence Police Department in that platform, and that we're using innovations that other bigger departments are using for the betterment, and all in the interest of public safety. I think that's what I would like to see, leave it better than when I took it over. And I think that has a lot to do with, this is 21st century policing. And listen, Noel just looked at ChatGPT to find our stats.
Yeah.
And so as police departments, we also have to look at what's good and what's going to make a department better, so that we can continue to police in a professional manner, constitutional manner, but staying up, because criminals are constantly thinking of what the next innovation is. I remember being in narcotics when we were finding drugs under, a seat of a car. They escalated. The people that were selling drugs were more innovative. They were looking for cans, had certain things. They had a hide in the car where you had to put the radio on, put the pedal on. We didn't know anything about that in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so they got innovative. And so the police department and the police in this profession, you have to stay up to speed in order to be able to compete with the criminal element. It's just part of the business.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I want to be at when I decide, that I'm done, I guess. So.
And speaking of technologies, break down to the people the body camera.
Yeah.
How does it work? The body camera, who has it? When it, like, what does every officer have the body camera? Break that down for people who don't understand the body camera.
Body cams are that innovative tool and resource that I'm all for. As a matter of fact, I was the community police major, and I was actually in charge of the pilot program for the Providence Police Department. And so it's key because it actually provides real-time situations, and it provides us an angle of what actually occurred. So we actually activate, especially when there's something. If I go over to your house, per se, and or you come to my house, per se, let me use myself as an example, and people said there was an argument, but in reality, I come up, we're having, I don't know, my mom, someone just died in the family, and the officer is probably not going to activate just to keep that privacy for the family. But if he shows up to my house and I start saying, what the F you showed up at my house for, this, that, the other thing, immediately you're supposed to start recording, because it all depends on the interactions, and also activate. And so you're supposed to keep it recording, and it keeps that recording in it. But the most important thing, I think, is that it provides actually what occurred. When I was in internal affairs, I've had people come in and say that A, B, and C happened. And we were able to exonerate officers, because that's not what happened. Someone actually said that they got beat up by the officer, and he had those injuries prior to encountering the officer, and we were able to prove that through the camera. In the same token, we've saw officers doing wrong things in the camera, and we're able to justify why we're looking to terminate somebody, why we're looking to suspend somebody, and so it's critical. Another thing is that when you're being recorded, and you tell somebody that it's being recorded, their attitude changes, because now they're on camera. And so for the officer, if that's the case, and so I think it's critical. I think it's an innovation. The majority of the departments and municipalities in the state have it. I'm just proud to say that the Providence Police Department was the first one in the state to have them. And so that was because we're all about transparency. We're all about that innovation and the stuff that I just mentioned earlier.
During your 2 years now as a chief of police, have you had to terminate anybody, or has it gotten to that level? And if so, how many, if any?
So no, I just I've had to suspend several people. And
do you have a number of suspensions yet? I don't know.
I've had a few, but to be concrete, obviously, we've had some Leopold cases, as happened in the past. It was on the news, and so yeah, but I really have not yet to have to terminate anybody officially. But there's some people that have either retired or whatever the case may be. But I haven't had the need to terminate anybody.
No terminations. No. And also, you were talking about earlier drug busts, etc. What has been the biggest drug bust that you've been a part of, like actually being there, seeing as a either chief of police or as an officer here in Providence? What's been like the biggest drug bust that you can recall?
I mean, I had my share of police work, as I mentioned earlier. I remember working undercover and seizing about over 40 kilos of cocaine that I sold as a Colombian, undercover work.
Really? What year was this?
It was up back in the 90s in Boston, and so
wow.
Yeah, I worked undercover there, and I did my share of police work in the city locally. But that was like the biggest bust that I can think of, because we seized a certain amount of currency, and I also worked undercover. I got dragged by a car on Valley Street, working undercover. There was a few good amount of ounces of heroin, and so It's just I've had my share of police work.
That's crazy. So they made you play an undercover cop.
Yeah.
That's selling kilos
Yeah.
of cocaine,
Yep.
and you're Colombian.
Correct.
So it's like stereotypically okay. You were able to pull that off. Was that stressful? Because
Yeah. I mean, you got to prepare for that. At the end of the day, is you're acting, and so.
Were you talking Spanish? It was like a Spanish sale.
Colombia, el acento parcerito mío colombiano es excelente.
Oh my God! What the?
It's one of those things where, but it's all that training, and at the end of the day, it's all in the interest of public safety. It's all in the interest of making our communities better for the future of our citizens. So,
if you can share, how many? I mean, you might not be able to say, but how many like undercover situations or like investigations or things of that nature are actively going on, like constantly, like right now? Like, is there like a number? Or is it like
I wouldn't be able.
You can't really say, right?
I wouldn't be able to provide you with that.
Yes.
But I think that every police department has their specialized units, and we all concentrate on different criminal elements.
Yeah.
And I think that's what causes a city to be safe. I had the privilege to sit on the parole board for the state of Rhode Island for about 6 years. And it's unfortunate to see so many young men that are doing time in prison. I met some of the most intelligent people in prison. They had impulsivity. They were in the wrong business because of social challenges, providing whatever they thought they were providing. And it's unfortunate because there's other ways. But, yeah, I mean, I think every department has specialized units, and they work on whatever cases come up. And so, yeah, there's undercover work. I'm sure bigger cities have bigger work. So, yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Dominican Festival that recently just happened, every year is like a thing. The police and the Dominican Festival in Providence. This year there was a post, and I want you to confirm: was it the Providence Police that made the post? Who made the post? There was a flyer that went up that was on social media, and from my research, it seemed like it was just like a fake flyer. But can you confirm or deny there was like almost like warnings that said to not do certain things, no littering, no music, no loud music, no big flags, and people were concerned like what's going on with the Dominican Festival this year? Is it no longer going to be the same? Why are they becoming more stricter? Can you kind of clarify the situation with that Dominican Festival in Providence, being the chief of police?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm even familiar with the flyer. I'm not sure who created it. I looked at the sort of the rules and warnings that were given, but those are the same rules that we gave in the past. And it's like, the loud music, obviously, certain decibels is illegal. I've always said that, a lot of these festivals happen in neighborhood and residence neighborhoods. I like it Conejo Malo. Some people don't like that. And, they want to hear it to a certain extreme. And there's elderly people, there's kids, they don't want to hear that. So we were just trying to warn the community, and we used a lot of discretion with summonses. Burning tires. People, you just like to burn the tires, motorcycles in between traffic. The big flags. We went, no. One of the questions was, I can't take on my flag? Of course you got to take out. That's the whole patriotism of celebrating the festival.
Yeah.
What we're worrying about is these big poles where people are waving them, and we've had incidents where they're waving them out of the car. They strike somebody that's like on the sidelines. Next thing you know, that person's pulling the flag. There's a fight going on, and it escalates. And so those warnings were just the law, the state law, that certain things, traffic laws, and sometimes those flags were covering the view of the driver as well. And so what happens if that person runs someone over? And so that's stuff that those rules were in place forever. It wasn't like we changed anything. One of our lieutenants actually explained it on the radio. But again, perception is reality. And so I had to get on the radio stations and certain different outlets to explain that those are the same rules that we've been using for decades. It's just that, there's certain things that you can't do. Public drinking, people are like, we can't drink it, but you've never been able to drink in public. You can't. You're not supposed to do that. Because what happens is, and let me tell you, Providence Police uses a lot of discretion. We got thousands of people. There's families. And so, but at times, people feel that they're intoxicated. They get emotional. They stop partying. Next thing you know, impulsivity occurs, and we have incidents. And the last thing I want as chief is a crime of violence during those festivities, because I've said it. And not just because I'm Latino, but I think that, being Dominican, Puerto Rican, when you're doing these festivals, we want to leave a good view of who we are. Because the last thing you want is chaos. And that's all we remember as. These people don't know how to party. Yeah. That's not it. It's all cultural. It's heritage. It's tradition. It's commemorating the, 1800s, I forget that happened in the Dominican Republic, and so that's what it's about, to educate.
Yeah.
So
Do you have a number of how many like cops were on staff for like the Dominican Festival?
yeah, we had a lot. We had a whole shift. We want to be almost. I don't know the exact number, to be honest with you, because as I came here today, we were just doing doing a debriefing.
Yeah.
But we had a good number of officers both on Broad Street and at the park.
Yeah.
So.
And how did this year go in comparison to other years?
Yeah, we've had more disturbances, disorderly conducts. We seized a few firearms. And again, a lot of these individuals that come to the city come from different municipalities and nearby states. And I want to make sure that they know they come to the city of Providence, they can celebrate, they can participate. You want to cause trouble?
Yeah,
we're going to be there. So yeah, it was busy. It was a busy night. We had an accident on Elmwood Avenue. It was unfortunate.
Yeah, rest in peace to the gentleman that died, the white motorcycle.
His families, my thoughts and prayers go to his family because he's sad. But yeah, so other than that, we had again, it was just a large crowd, but disturbances, dispersals, a few firearms.
Yeah,
but nothing really violent.
And is it one of those events that I would think, in the outside looking from your perspective, you guys have like meetings about this like Dominican Festival every year because it's like an anticipated thing?
Correct.
Because it's the biggest festival culturally out of all the festivals in the city, I would say, every year, right?
We do it for every festival. We do it for every festival, any venues in the city, any nightclubs that is bringing a certain promoter or an artist. Again, we have to be, because the buck stops here, and so we're very proactive when it comes to the security and safety of the city.
Yeah. Also, if you can speak on this, and I want you to elaborate on this, right? There was a controversial story that happened last year, which I covered, where there was a relative of yours, I'm going to say within the last 2 years, that got arrested, drug-related, right? And people were instantly like, oh, my God, how's he? This is the chief of police, and he's related to this gentleman. Give clarity to the people, like you did and during some of those press conferences and everything, but provide it to the people here, for those who don't know. Break down the situation in your perspective.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he chose the wrong path. Family's family. I've always said it. You have your family, everybody has family, but he chose the wrong path. We have our career, both myself and my brother. We had 32 years of service. It's unfortunate that it occurred, but obviously I was not even chief when he got arrested. And so a year later after I was chief, he came out, but he was already locked up. He was already arrested. Listen, we always teach, mentor if we can, but at the end of the day, I have my family. Everybody has their own family. There's parents that don't even know what their kids are doing. And I know people who say, well, you're the chief of police. I was in the administrative division, and no one, it's not like, someone was, it's unfortunate again, but he's going to have to face the consequences of that. People always question, I love my family. It's just part of it. But at the end of the day, you can't predict behavior of those that live next to you or what they're doing.
Yeah.
I just talked to you about different undercover work I've done, and so I have my job and my life, and others have theirs. So.
Yeah. What is your mental state of mind when something like this happens? Because instantly your credibility is going to be in question by the community. So, but what goes through your mind? Like, how do you deal with this? Is it stressful? Is it like confusion? Especially when it's like family related. Like, what give people kind of like bring us there to that moment. Let's say that first 24 hours when the story broke, and then you being questions and your calls, and you had to like do interviews and like, give people like that
That's
perspective.
awesome, man. That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that, to be honest with you. And so, yeah, listen, I'm a human being. Family's family, but I'll tell you that to me, it's like any other problem. It's noise. And you have a mission and a vision to move on. I had responsibility to run this department, come to work, as I mentioned, to do what my day starts in the morning. That's the business. That's the job I'm in. And I'm the business. Of course, it bothers anybody. You listen, I'm a human being. I got emotions. I got a heart, of course. But at the end of the day, when you come to work and you put this uniform on, anything else is noise. There's officers that getting divorced, that lost their child during a traffic accident. Some officers and even have lost, or even people that I know have lost family members to substance abuse. At the end of the day, it's you gotta move forward. And so. And it's news. I also understand that being the police chief, you're news. And so you have to, you are who you are, but at the end of the day, the job's got to get done.
Yeah. No, yeah, because I trust me, I understand, even throughout my own criticism, like, you are human. So I always wonder, like, in the midst of it all, the judgment, etc. I'm like, oh, I wonder how the chief is, like, dealing with that just mentally, because especially if it is like no correlation, just a coincidence, and you have nothing connected to it, no corruption at all, then it's like, if it was me, I'd be going through hell. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, this is something that I gotta, you know what I'm saying, deal with every day, and then people are gonna question it, etc. I would be going crazy.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, one thing that the sport of boxing has taught me is that you're in the fight by yourself. And so when you jump in that ring, it's all about survival. Yeah, you may have people on your corner that give you the advice, give you the water, clean your face if you're bleeding. But at the end of the day, when you're there, it's you. And so you have to have your mind clear, because if you want to win, you have to have your mind clear. Everything else, and listen, to me, it's a privilege to be able to have grown up in the environment that I grew up in, because that allows me to be a better chief and to be a better police officer. So it's just noise. At the end of the day, you got to win the fight. You got to get in there and move on.
Yeah, 100%. You had the question. There was an incident that recently happened that
I had a few questions
that people wanted us to bring up. What you mentioned earlier, you were kind of alluding to it, but this is like more of a specific example of the controversial Friendship Street arrest.
that and the ISIS situation.
Yeah. So, but let's start with the Friendship Street one, because I know that was kind of more chronologically when it comes to the story today that he was discussing.
Yeah, so I just want to start with this because there are a few questions on both incidents. And the reason why we're doing this is because I do want to have I want to give you the chance to explain the behavior of the department. That's why, biggest reason why I'm glad you're here, because I know you get a lot of criticism, and I have friends that are in the department. I understand it's difficult being a police officer.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping through this conversation, we can have an open dialogue about what exactly is going on, especially when it comes to police misconduct and holding them accountable. So I want to ask you this question first when we're talking about the Friendship Street incident. For those who don't know, that is the incident where there were a noise complaint that was made. Police officers arrived on scene. They arrived twice. The second time they showed up, it is visible in the body cam footage that one of the police officers decided to push someone that was going into their house. Another police officer decided to arrest someone that was, they believed was being disorderly. And then there was the whole incident of the other police officer punching them while they're being arrested. So my first question to you is, Chief, do you believe that it is appropriate for an officer to put their hands on civilians who are unarmed, not a threat, and not resisting arrest?
So, that's a great question. And I'll tell you that it was actually 3 times that we went there to West Friendship. But to specifically answer your question, yes, we can use force. And I've always said that force is never pretty, right? When do we use force? We can use force to direct movement. We can push somebody to direct movement. Mm-hmm. We can also use force to create distance between us and somebody else.
Yeah, space.
We can also use force to call somebody's attention, whatever the case may be. But again, and I mentioned this earlier, there's room in the space sometimes where we, in my position, have to look at it and say whether those actions of an officer either escalated or de-escalated the situation. And so it all depends on what reasoning that happened. Because when you always got to be aware that when an officer pushes somebody, no different than a human being, but especially an officer in uniform, is going to catch a reaction from that person. Mm-hmm. And if that person reacts, then you're going to have to use something else. So we constantly train as far as when to use force, when not to use force, and to be aware of your actions, how that could escalate or de-escalate the situation. So I guess to answer you, can we use force if someone's not resisting? And if someone's not acting up, if I understood you clearly, no. But it all depends on the whole objectively reasonable of the officer. There's times, and I always say that force is never pretty. It's almost like to ask like question. You put the uniform on, and sometimes we use deadly force. Was there an issue? Can they shoot him in the leg? Can they shoot him in the arm? It's not. It all depends on whatever the officer is seeing and acting on. There's actually law on this. A case law that talks about objectively reasonable to use force. Is that objectively reasonable? I'm not the officer, but it all depends what he observed, what she observed. He could be standing there and says, I need to push this person because if not, they're going to turn around or something's going to happen based on what's going on behind me, whatever the case may be. But in our position as supervisors, we have to make sure that the force was properly used, or whether it was wrong or not, if there's room for training. And that's where we have to intervene.
Okay, so I watched the full tape.
Correct.
And not just the one that was on social media, people moving around. Like, I've actually seen the full thing. And this is where I have to ask you, if someone is walking into their house,
yes,
by your definition of force that is escalating a situation,
yes,
this person is complying with the police officer. They are doing what they're being asked to do. They're going into the house, and the police officer still felt, despite the fact that no one is around them, they're just telling them go inside. They're in front of them. He decided to still push them into their house.
Correct.
And if you go by the chronological order of that video, it appears that is what escalated the situation at that point, was that push, because it felt unnecessary in the moment because, like I said, people are unarmed. They're complying with the orders that are being given. They're going into their house. But this random officer still decided to take it upon themselves to push an individual into their home. And that is when that video just turned chaotic and everyone starts yelling and screaming. And that's when that's when the arrest began with the other individual because of that. So by your definition of necessary force, that feels like the escalating point. That doesn't feel like it was force necessary to de-escalate. It feels like it was force that was causing escalation, and I want to hear your opinion on that.
Correct, and I agree with that. That's actually what we addressed.
Okay.
Exactly what you just stated, that escalation, right? But I also don't want to forget the fact, and I want to keep that here on the side, that many times officers use force because of whatever they believe is objectively reasonable. Now, we're analyzing, internal affairs looks at it, and to your point, that escalates the whole situation, creates a reaction. Yeah. And so we had to address that.
Okay, so this is my next question.
Yeah.
He's a passionate gentleman.
No, sorry.
No problem. I like it. Like your style.
So thank you. I appreciate it.
Don't scare him out of here, though.
No, I'm not.
God damn.
So you're saying there was an internal affairs conversation. Can you tell me what were the repercussions in that situation?
Yeah, so there'll be retraining on that situation. There will be use of force training. And there's a different lines, as I mentioned earlier, that, many times our officers, I feel that, especially here at this position, I've done the job. I totally get it. Sometimes you need to retrain. So there'll be de-escalation training, use of force training, and other aspects of our policies to make sure that we can, everybody else that, including, those other officers that were there, can see certain actions, and you think when that occurs, what your actions could create, which will happen there.
Yeah, because you could tell that the officer definitely, it was too much. It was unnecessary, in my opinion, that behavior. He probably was frustrated, but it's like in that actual incident, you gotta, be cautious. I was speaking to an officer this morning about the incident. He was like, people don't know, like that party, it was 300 people at that party. We went multiple times, we went prior to that moment, and we gave them a warning, etc. So the officer himself probably, I'm assuming, I don't know the gentleman, but he probably had a frustrated moment and acted out. But, when you do that and it's on camera, that's where you get this, where the people are uproar, like, what the fuck is going on? Why is the Providence Police? Why are you pushing us? So they start to be like, what's going on? But you're saying that there's going to be retraining type of steps.
Yeah, but we also got to remember this, and I don't want to forget this part.
Yeah.
Objectively reasonable.
Okay.
When you're, there's a large crowd, obviously, we're watching with the video, but when you're in that position, it's nice for us to think, but there is vision. There's certain visions that you're having. You're taking everything in, loud, whatever, because maybe someone's getting arrested behind you for whatever. You're not even watching what that's occurring. We have the opportunity now to look at those videos, see what occurred, and fix it. But objectively, in your mind, you may be looking at something or feeling something different. Like, this person's got to get in the house, and you got to push, which is going to create what you said. Turn around and be like, okay, now I'm going to do this. And the escalation, it went just from there.
Yeah.
But we have to be able to at least teach that, okay, I get it. You were thinking this, you were thinking that. But however, look, this is what occurred. And so it's no different than, forget the fact that you're a cop and you're in a family feud with your brother or your sister, and you do something, you're like, why did I do, whatever. But it's in your mindset. You never know. You thought somebody was going to get, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But for our office, you see my point?
I get what you're saying. Yeah. So this is, again, a follow-up question on that idea of retraining, because this is the thing. In my brain, and this is just how I look at it, I understand that police are fundamentally necessary, but I also understand you're a worker. So if in my job I do something wrong, I get written up. I get written up enough, I'm gone. And my question to you is, according to your policy, is there amount of times when you continue to get retrained and it's like, this is enough, you have to go? Like, is there a system in your department that says there is a limit to how many times you can make this mistake? Because if I make a mistake in my job, then just work doesn't get done. You make a mistake in your job, someone can die. Right. So I feel like there should be a higher burden of responsibility placed on you guys, and there should be a higher requirement. And my question to you is, retraining is cool. To me, it's cute. But the question is, are you going to be held responsible to a point where your livelihood is now in danger and you could be terminated for the behavior that you're taking part of over a subsequent period of time throughout your career?
Of course. Listen,
Yeah, like is there like a strike policy,
no,
like
of
a
course.
3-strike, or like
we have progressive discipline. It's actually online if you look it up.
Okay.
It's progressive discipline. Of course. To your point, it's like how much can you train somebody, right? It's right. And so, but that's not the case here. This is actually a fairly new officer.
I heard,
Just
yeah.
get on the job. They probably never had anything ran like that. And so that's how we start, is progressive discipline. To your point, of course. I mean, am I going to sit here and tell you a month from now or maybe 2 years from now that I'm still retraining somebody? I mean, it all depends on the situation. There's some stuff that is so egregious. There's really no room for retraining, right? So it all depends. It all depends. But we have progressive discipline to answer your question. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And this is my last question on this
Yeah,
topic, and then we'll move on to ICE. So, all right, this one is, here we go. It is noted in the video and from the police reports of that night that the officers on camera were acting on the commands of the lieutenant, who was on the scene. At one point, the orders from the lieutenant were, get the people inside and arrest them. Is that correct?
I don't know about that exact word. Get the people inside and arrest them. I think that was not everybody, and if that's what you're referring to, but
Yeah.
I think there was an order to make an arrest, correct? Yeah.
Okay. So follow-up is, in the video, you could see that the police officer swooped in and began to hit the individual who's being arrested after Lieutenant gave the officer orders to assist in the arrest. So to clarify what I mean there was a moment where there was an officer who swooped in and started punching on an individual that was being arrested. And if you watch the video, you can see the lieutenant had said to the officer, go assist in that arrest. My question is, this leads many viewers to believe that this is how you train officers to deal with high-stress situations and arrest. So I have to ask, is hitting individuals that are on the ground, unarmed, and being arrested by multiple officers part of these police officers' training? And is it common for the leadership in the department to command officers under their leadership to follow through on these type of tactics? Because I understand it's legal. But in the situation where we're talking about someone who's unarmed, there may be a risk resisting arrest because of stress, but it's a noise complaint call. It's not a violent call. It's not that there's a shooting. It's a noise complaint. And you decided to use the tactic of punching someone who's being arrested by multiple police officers after your lieutenant gave the orders. My question to you is this common behavior? Is this what you're teaching these police officers? And how do you take that as someone that is in charge and watching this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, I always said force is never pretty. Yeah. Use of force is never pretty, but it's a need. And yes, we do train officers to use force based, again, I like to mention, is the objectively reasonable. I'm not in those shoes of those officers. As far as what you stated earlier, whether he was that specific officer that was doing the punches, got the order from the lieutenant to go, all I see is the officer running to assist someone that's trying to get handcuffed. Punches were done, and then he will immediately comply once the punches are done. And sometimes when you punch somebody and you use that type of force, it creates, again, a reaction from someone like, okay, let me give in. And the reason I say that is because that's just one incident, it's a noise violation. We've had incidents, people leaving a nightclub, in which officers had to use force. There's times where individuals have gotten firearms, shot somebody on their head right in front of the officers. So when you're trying to handcuff somebody, you don't really know if the person's still armed. You just don't know because you haven't had a chance to actually pat that person down. And so when you come in, you're just trying to get that person handcuffed. Strikes are given, person's cuffed. We've had incidents in the city in which actually there was one where some kids went out through the city and they were actually shooting several people. I don't know if you remember that back Man Avenue.
Yeah, I remember.
Or like BB guns or something?
Correct. And so it was, but the call came in as someone who actually had a rifle.
Yes, I remember.
So the officer's mind says like, okay, there's a rifle. There's a young officer that's coming in, and he's doing almost the same thing. He's punching, and you see a sergeant actually grabbing the officer and taking him away. Is that tunnel vision that happens to just human nature? Here in the specific case, though, the punches were given, and the person complied. The resisting arrest was there because if you're an officer and you grab me, and I'm on the ground and I'm trying to get up, and I'm resisting with you, and you strike me, say, in my face, and I go, and I feel it because you look like a big guy, and I feel it. I mean, I may go like this, and I go handcuff. Worst case could be like you don't strike me, and God forbid I do. I'm just saying if someone's armed, and then for example, and I just shoot you, shoot everybody else, those 5 officers that are there. I'm not saying that happened here, but that's sometimes the way that we have to make sure that the interest is to put somebody in handcuffs. Usually people just do this, Go ahead, sir. No problem. No force use. But if there's resistance, we are allowed to mace, strike. Listen, we're allowed to take somebody's life. But we have to make sure that that's all in compliance with the objectively reasonable and without actually escalating something that's bigger. And that is my job to finish that with that, to make sure that when we see something, if we see room and space for retraining, we have to.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And I totally respect that. My thing is, your job depends on us. You can't solve a crime without the people of this city. You wouldn't have crime without the people of this city. You wouldn't have a job without the people in this city. And when you're telling me about how, you pride yourself in the fact that crime is falling, that you guys are solving cases, like you need us to do these things. How do you expect people to have trust in you if they're watching videos of police officers punching people that are, just resisting arrest in that moment for a noise complaint? Mm-hmm. Because then it creates that fear that we were talking about of, not trusting the police, because what if it's something more serious? I see someone with a gun. It's like, well, if I'm not sure it's a gun that they have in their hand, it may be a toy gun, and I call the police, I don't know what you're going to do. You're punching people for a noise complaint. What would you do in this instance where someone may have a toy gun? It recently happened in Pawtucket, the special needs person who was shot. So it definitely creates a sentiment of like, I understand that bringing you in this scenario will escalate the situation. That's how a lot of people view it. And my question to you is, how does that make you feel? Because you want to work with the community.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, and I think you present a great picture. But let's clarify something. The person disengaged. Force was not used because of the noise complaint. Force was used because this individual was not. They were trying to cuff this individual.
Yeah. But I mean, what caused the incident was
correct.
The noise
There was
complaint.
The 3 times that we went there, we would never went there if there was no minors drinking or now people fighting in the streets. We would never went there. But the reason that the strikes were given was to make sure that we cuff this person. But how do I tell our community that they should have trust and faith in the police department? Listen, we do this 24/7. Every day we encounter arrests constantly. Force is used left and right. We just spoke about the Dominican festival, disturbances left and right with thousands of people. Not one video, right? Either people complied or it was the case. Here, it was an incident where we saw room for de-escalation training, and obviously the force that was used. It's the officer used it to make sure that this person was cuffed. So I guess my point is to make sure that the community understands that they have a great police department, that we're always looking to see where there's room for retraining and also actually counseling if needed. But also we have to respect the fact that sometimes force has to be used and it's never pretty. That's just part of the job. I've used force. I mean, maybe a hypocrite if I tell you here that I never punched anybody. It's all in the interest of making sure of safety for them and us. I actually put somebody that was loaded up with a firearm, and thank God no, he didn't kill myself or my partner. And so it's just part of the job. And usually my advice is, I always said it, that the actions of a municipal police officer, and not just in province, anywhere, are going to depend very much on the actions of another person.
Yeah.
If someone punches somebody after they went like this and complied, you can bet that I have a problem with that.
No, and I totally understand. Okay, so moving on to ICE. And for those who are watching and don't really know what's going on, ICE was in Rhode Island. I understand that there was a high-speed chase. They were chasing after an individual that, and I need to make this very clear, had an administrative warrant, not a judicial warrant. So that was not HSI that was after him. It was ICE that was after him.
Correct.
By that definition, you legally cannot be involved as a police department. You cannot cooperate with an ICE operation that is administrative warrant.
Correct.
The reason why you were on the scene was because there was an accident that was reported. Correct. And you were coming in to report the accident and deal with the police report. Now, Chief, I have a question for you. How do you interpret the law and your own policy that is a direct copy and paste of the city law that says Providence Police cannot cooperate with ICE in enforcing administrative warrants? Specifically, how do you interpret the word cooperate?
So the word cooperate is when you actually... Just the word cooperate is when you're actually going in, cuffing somebody, taking them out of the house, giving them, here you go, that's a person, if that's what you're asking me what cooperation is. Making an arrest, putting handcuffs on somebody, and then bringing them in, knocking the door down, things of that nature.
Okay, so by that definition, do you believe the Providence Police Department, your officers, violated the law and cooperated with ICE?
No, they did not. On that day, specific day we're talking about, no, they did not. Yeah.
So this is my question, because I've read the law. I've had lawyers explain it to me. In the video, you can see that Providence Police were talking to ICE agents and asking them if they needed assistance.
Correct.
Is this not, by definition, cooperation, especially within how it is defined within the city charter?
I like to say again that perception is reality for many people, right? And so when they see that, right, I wish that they had used different words. We're going to help you control the crowd. We're not going to be here grabbing anybody for you. We're not going to be able to do A, B, and C for you.
Specifying it more.
Specifying it more in the video. Would I like that? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I also understand that our office's job, especially in urgent situations, tense situations, is all in the interest of public safety. And I'm okay with that, with the fact that they knew, listen, these federal agents just got into an accident. These federal agents were getting ready to type a search warrant. These federal agents were ready to kick a door in. There's kids in the house. There's people that are going to be dragging out of there, unintentionally consequences, and potentially a bigger problem that we, the Providence Police Department, were going to have to go back and respond to, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so decided that Sergeant Sadi was going to knock on the door and evacuate the person out. In the process of that, and yes, it looks like he's engaging. The lady says, they just stuck the shotgun in my face.
Yeah.
I don't want them here. I like you guys. I want you to take me out and help me. This idea of us retreating from a call is unrealistic. It's not going to happen at all. And so I think that's what I like. And I know some people, my job is to make sure that I look at everything and make sure at the end of the day, to my earlier answer to you, we didn't take anybody out. The lady says he's coming down. So he tells the agent, as you saw on the video, that the person's coming down. Another thing, and I'll get ahead of it because he may ask me that. The officer says, what does the guy look like?
Yeah.
If and you can tell that he's exchanging. Police officers work on information. If you know for a fact, you're a police officer, you are there, and you know that Oscar Perez just killed somebody, because that's what they said. He's an MS-13 member. He's wanted for murder, right? I would hope that you as a police officer want to know what I look like. Because if I come out of the house and you're in front of the door, you want to know what the hell I look like. Because if not, it's all information. We do everything based on information that we need. And then when we were there in the process, the person comes out and he's cuffed by immigration. But again, he's and another thing that I like to mention.
I'm sorry, let me just clarify this.
Yeah, sure.
They did not tell you it was an administrative warrant. They told you that they were there on judicial orders to arrest someone that was an illegal immigrant that committed a crime.
They told the officers that there was a gentleman or the individual took call from them. There was a car accident and that he was an MS-13 member and wanted for murder.
Okay.
And again, but to your point, you're right. They had no judicial warrant. It was just an administrative. But our mindset was to control the crowd outside. As you saw in the video, they were excited, and we have to. If we left, we would have had to come back.
So why didn't your officers ask for the warrant? Like, why did they ask to see the warrant that they were operating off of?
Because at that point, it was more, they would get it. As you can see in the video, I think one of the sergeants says, we're going to leave out of here. But when the crowd started to get excited, they're like, okay. And now we're knowing that you're getting what? A SWAT team coming in and kicking the door? You're going to do that? To us, it wouldn't matter. At the end of the day, you didn't tell us that you were. It wasn't like they were going to tell us that it was a judicial warrant. At the end of the day, it was all, we wanted to evacuate people because we knew that they were getting together a SWAT team to come in. Mm-hmm. And the sergeant decided he was going to get the people out of the house.
So I understand everything you're saying, and I do respect the situation that you're in. But this is where I get a little frustrated because we just had a conversation about body cam footage. And according to body cam footage legislation that was passed in the State House, police, specifically you guys, your department, don't have to release one-on-one conversations with their colleagues that is caught on tape to the public. However, under your department's policy, you are required to keep these microphones on. In the incident with ICE and the incident in Friendship Street, multiple officers on the scene muted their microphone, meaning not only us, the public, were denied the ability to hear what was said, so were you and internal affairs. I understand that according to your department policy, that is a decision that leads to repercussions. I have to ask you, were the police officers that had their microphone muted during these incidents, were they punished? And why are they still allowed to mute their microphones? Because that's not denying us access. That's denying you the ability to find out what's going on. Because you're giving me your side of the story, but I know it's incomplete because you didn't even hear the full conversation like the rest of us did. We don't really know what happened that day. We don't really know what those officers were saying.
So yeah, on West Friendship, obviously that was addressed as well. They were disciplined for the muting, and during the Albertson Street incident as well, that was addressed. Again, it's I think that we had enough, at least during the federal agents incident, to make a determination of what occurred. But to your point, yes, there was violations of the body-worn camera policy, and that was addressed.
So my question is, how is it addressed? And like, if it continues to happen, so the public can have that reassurance.
Yeah. Transparently speaking, like what are type of like what are maybe like the discipline, like action that one might take?
It goes back to that progressive discipline that I mentioned to you earlier.
Yeah.
It goes back to that. If it's that first level of progressive discipline, then the officer is going to get that first level. If it's the second time, then he's going to get his verbal reprimand, verbal warning. You can pull it up. It comes right. There's suspension. But again, I mean, it all depends on where it is. We have officers that probably could have been involved in an incident, say, 16 years ago. And so do we, we got to balance all that. It's almost the same when I sat on the parole board. Someone goes to jail for 3-4 years.
Of course.
We give them a chance to get back out. Is that fair or no? Because, listen, when you were 17 years ago, and I'm just trying to use a sort of like a most fair objective.
The record, the history.
Because at the end of the day, you still got to have, you got to have some sort of consistent and fair discipline. So.
Yeah, because that was my thing. At the end of the day, I know we are one of the only states to have a police bill of rights, and I understand the police bill of rights has notoriously been said to be used to protect bad police officers. So I know that the public's perception is that there is no accountability, and that's why I'm asking you on camera to help the public understand, is there in fact a system of holding these officers accountable? Is there a point where there will be a suspension, where there will be a firing? Is behavior being accounted for over a period of time? Because the narrative in the community is there are bad apples, and we know who they are, and they're still riding around. And it makes us have full distrust towards the entire system. And that's why I'm asking you that question. And this is my last question on this ICE thing. This is a greater conversation about, company culture. We'll call you company culture. Because you are, at the end of the day, the boss. And I have to ask you, do you believe there's officers in your department that support ICE and the current deportations?
Do I believe this officer support ICE? I know we have a policy in place.
I'm asking you,
yeah.
truthfully, do you believe you have officers on your force that support ICE and the current deportations that is taking place?
I do not, in the sense that as you said, I'm the boss. I like that title, thank you. But at the end of the day, there's a policy in place.
Okay.
And so
even if it's like a personal belief that they have?
I wish I'd be able to predict people's mindsets, but I don't. And so, but I do know that we have a policy in place. We hold people accountable, and our mission is all in the interest of public safety. If somebody deviates from that, then they got to be held accountable. That's all I'd be able to tell you.
So the reason why I ask you that is because I just want to know, if you do find out someone supports ICE, or you're saying you have this policy in place, how are you combating the possibility that someone has a personal support for ICE and that they may possibly act on that while wearing the uniform? Because the sentiment that I got from the video that I was watching, I don't believe the Providence Police Department works with ICE. But I do believe you have police officers, because this is notoriously known that Donald Trump's base is police officers. You have police officers who are against illegal immigration, and you have police officers that fully support ICE. And I believe in that moment you had police officers that chose to pick their political views over their responsibility and duty to the people of this city. So my question to you is, how do you avoid that from happening? And how are you as a department handling that possible reality? Because at the end of the day, it could fully happen. Someone could act on their views versus their responsibilities.
Yeah, it's no different than somebody acting on a different view of something else. It's accountability, it's retraining if needed, it's suspensions if needed. It all depends. It's just at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you're consistent and fair with whatever it is that, and not just for ICE. It could be abuse of force, brutality, unprofessionalism, and so it's being consistent, holding people accountable when you need to.
Okay. Yeah, because from my perspective, when I saw it, my thing is like, if the Providence Police are working with ICE, at least make it where it's like, if it's gonna happen, be transparent with the people, and maybe change the laws, city laws. Yeah. We're like, okay, police can work with ICE. We're letting you know it's happening, etc. But then that story broke, and people were like, wait, if this is happening, then it's like, wait, it's illegal, against their own laws. So then that's where the conflict of interest of the people were like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. So it makes people worried, because they're like, if you are working with ICE, let us know, because it's that way we know if we get pulled over, we know like where if we have a maybe an undocumented friend or something of that nature, it's like we get extra cautious, because people don't want to be walking around and driving around like Providence Police are ICE. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the mission of the department, and I know that for a fact, has always been building trust, public safety, regardless of your illegal status or legal status in the country, undocumented or not. That's at the end of the day. I mean, me personally and our district commanders go to a lot of these community events, and that's what people don't remember. We speak to undocumented individuals about what to do when they get pulled over, how to act, what to know that we're not. This is what we want. This is what we're going to act on. And so it's a relationship. To me, it's critical to make sure that the trust is there. And also like to mind you that, when officers respond to this type of scenarios, and they're not thinking of these interests, safety and public interests. It's safe under the interest of safety.
Yes.
When you're not thinking in that sense,
Yeah.
you've seen it, and you can Google it and look at other municipalities, civil unrest, injure individuals, unnecessary arrest, and guess who's in the middle of that? The local police department. It's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, we have to. And I always like to say that this, people would say, administrative, judicial, you should just jump in your cars and leave. At the end of the day, you have a service to do, and that's for those innocent people that are there. I can't get into a fight with a federal agent, but I can actually assist, all in the interest to make sure that those other individuals are safe and make sure that potentially they don't get arrested by them. And so it's a delicate issue, but I'm very confident to tell you that our officers are constantly trained. This is a hot topic, and I want to make sure that our officers don't end up in the situations that has happened in other municipalities. I watched the news where civil unrest, injuries, and unnecessary arrests have occurred. And at the end of the day, those other agencies leave, and guess who's hurt is the police department and the trust of the police department.
So you can guarantee to the public that it is fundamentally understood that Providence Police Department cannot cooperate with ICE in any way. Okay.
That's correct.
That's right.
So this is my last question, then I'm done. This is more of a personal question for you, because I do respect you, and I do think you care about this city. But I do understand that there's a lot of people in the city who feel like the police are not trustworthy, and they don't want to cooperate with you guys, and they feel like calling on you would lead to violence. I also feel like, especially with the recent ICE thing, they don't trust you I don't think they think you're working with ICE. I think they think there are police officers in your force that are not under control. I think a lot of them feel like you don't hold these people accountable correctly. According to your synopsis, like the way you're viewing it, why do you think this is happening? Why do you feel like people have this perspective? And you, as the person who is in charge of this police force, what do you think you can do, especially with what's happened with Friendship Street and what happened with ICE? How can you, moving forward, deal with this problem and try to, repair those bonds and those damages and make sure that we are a more collaborative community?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think they have to have trust. And again, I go back to the fact that we're in these communities. Our district commanders are in these communities, speaking to different nonprofits, different organizations that are actually providing resources to undocumented individuals, those that actually have the fear and anxiety, those that are actually beating. I'm not worried about those that are somewhere else making their own agendas. I'm worrying about those that have to go to work, that have to walk their kids to school, and those are the ones that I want to be able to build trust with and legitimacy and feel comfortable enough that the city of Providence and the police department embraces them to make sure that they continue with their lives, because we're not immigration officers. And so those are the ones that we do it all the time. Again, we have 9 districts, 9 different commanders, very diverse. I'd be a hypocrite if I tell you myself I'm an immigrant. If I tell you here that I don't feel the pain and the fear and anxiety, I'm a lie. I've seen it. I came here with my dad as an immigrant. Totally get it. And so I do get the fact that in order for us to build that trust, is be able to hit those hearts and hit those individuals that are being affected. Not worrying about who's got an agenda. That doesn't matter to me. I worry about those people that go to work, that are afraid, and I want to make sure that they understand where we stand, that we're not immigration officers, and it's the same priority of the mayor, that we are here to protect them and provide them with the safety that they need. Obviously, and in the education that they need as well. And that's the only thing I can do. I can't control any other perceptions, because perception is reality, but we have an open door. And so we have officers that speak Spanish and other languages. And so we work very closely with the International Institute. We work very closely with other entities. And so the only thing we can continue to do is continue to build that trust and that legitimacy in the department. That's the only thing I can tell you. And be confident enough that I'll hold people accountable and needed. But I also have to respect and give guidance, because when these things happen, I want to be able to have my officers make decisions that are in the interest of safety for everyone. So,
all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Chief.
I appreciate you. And wrapping up here, you answered it a bit earlier too, but these are questions that people ask. These are actual opinions online that are very popular when it comes to the police, especially the Providence Police Department. So if someone asks you, and someone as a chief of police, is the Providence Police Department racist? What's your response?
We're not. But I'd be a hypocrite if I told you that people don't have certain biases, right? I like to think that our training, our cultural competency, and to your point earlier, listen, 438 officers. I can't read minds. I don't know, but at the end of the day, I know what we have in place for policies and our mission, and so that's what I would tell them. That, you know what, tell me why you're thinking that. Number one, tell me what your interaction was with the officer. Let us look into it, and let us give you an answer of why you feel that. If there was something that was done that has you to believe that, then it has to be addressed. Listen, I grew up in the city. I got pulled over also. I get it. There's officers that work for me years later. I was a young man who was walking down Broad Street, and I get it. I got pulled over, thrown against the car, got a pat down, going to church. And so it's, I get it. But at the end of the day, I also lived in an extremely hot street. Elma Street was where I actually grew up.
Oh,
There was Elma, ELMA.
Elma.
There was an Elma Street posse. A house got burned next to me, and so these cops were coming around left and right, trying to pat people down. There were shootings, and so I was like, yeah, I got nothing to hide. But at the end of the day, I did feel like I can't even leave my house to go to church. So I totally get it. But at the end of the day, it's like, tell me what happened. Let me look into it and get you an answer. Because if I told you that I was perfect, or that the department's perfect, I'm a hypocrite again. That's unrealistic. A family of 5 is not perfect. And so, but the only thing we can do is have the mom and dad that check us every now and then to make sure we continue. And I'm not mom and dad, but I am the police chief. So
Yeah. No, I'm not for nothing. I do like. I didn't know this about you. I do like how you are from here, and you are the chief of police. And it's like, for me, that's how it should be. Like, the chief of police of my city should be from my city. You know, and it should be, you have history. You've been an officer for this so many, like you said,
32 years, yeah.
32 years. So you have a long history and a long track record. Because me, in my opinion, I truly believe that Providence is the best city in the world. I stand by it. I love Providence. I'll live here for the rest of my life. I'll grow. I'll raise my entire family here forever. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I always want to ensure to have the best possible police department, and you are the chief. And I've always, me personally, to be honest, out in the streets, I've always heard good things about you. Oh, Oscar's a great guy. He's a great guy. Meeting you in passing and seeing you in passing, you've always been, you have good energy, and you give off organic energy. So,
Thank you.
I do like that. Also, another question that people, if someone was to ask you, is the Providence Police Department corrupt? What's your response to that?
Yeah, listen, this is an organization, and that we work based on the trust and legitimacy of the department. So if that's the case, I want to know why the person's saying that, so I can look into it. I mean, because again, it's possible that someone had a bad experience where they got pulled over and something was taken from. I don't know, but if that's the case, we want to look into it. And so that would be my answer to that person. I also like to add that, to your point earlier, and I appreciate the great words, but I think having grown up in this environment actually puts me in a different level, because I understand not just, we're victims of our own environment. And so I could have been in prison. I could have been somewhere else. And I'm just saying, because of the people that you interacted with. I remember in high school, it was Central, someone having a firearm, and me seeing it, being around this group of kids. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. The last thing I wanted just to get away from that. And some of those kids are dead. Some of those kids are in jail. And so we're victims of our own environment. But I do understand it. I do understand, even when you mentioned about my nephew. Things like that happen. You realize that you could get very easily labeled on certain things. And so it's important for me to remember that, because I can preach that to the young officers on the street. You're going to encounter individuals that, because of the way they look, the way they dress, you and your mindset, because you grew up in a different environment, that may call something for you. That's nothing. That's just the way people present themselves.
Yeah.
I sat on the parole board. I saw kids coming in front of me that have been in prison for 18 years. And the way they walked into the room, the way they expressed themselves, people took that as a disrespect. That's all they know. The dude's been in prison for 18, 19 years. And so, to your point, I think it's a privilege for me to have that knowledge so that I can educate others. But I also have to make sure that my decisions are fair and objective and are not based on political influence.
But my thing is, don't you feel like the bureaucracy limits your ability to do what you think is right, or you feel is, or you understand the context of the situation. So like the bureaucracy, the politics just doesn't allow you to do like right by your community. Have you ever felt that?
That's a great point. So I talked to a good friend of mine who's actually a mentor. And one of the things that I made my decisions are based on my core values. And I don't give that up for nobody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Any questions in mind to wrap up here?
No, you answered everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, he did. Very transparent.
Very transparent. We do appreciate that, the honesty.
Thank you. No, of course, man. I appreciate this. And again, I'm proud of the fact that you have this going on because I think that there should be more opportunities, especially in the time that we're in, to allow for young entrepreneurs to be able to move on and do your thing so that you can make a difference. That's what makes impacts.
No, 100%. Because to me, it's like a logical no-brainer, like to have a conversation with the chief of police of our city. Like, we want to know who this person is, right? There's so much criticism, but like, who is this person, right? Because they have a very critical role, very important role. So why wouldn't we want to know? You know, and objectively speaking, you know, I have a 4-year-old son, and he sees officers in the street. He's so young and innocent. He's like, officer, cop. Like, he's like kids want to become cops when they're very innocent and young. So we have to try to be objective as much as possible with this type of situation, and also at the same time hold people accountable. That's why we do cover stories all the time, you know, where we're like, what the fuck is happening with the police? When the ICE stuff, we're like, I hope the police is not working with ICE. Certain things, because we're like, damn, we are in this community, and especially this platform, we have a big voice. Yeah. So we want to make sure we're like, hey, what's really going on here? So we always call out the bullshit.
We covered our friends.
We covered our own friends. I had a cousin of mine, you know, God bless, who is basically facing life in jail for selling fentanyl, right? And this was someone that I would never in a million years expect him to do something like this. But that he went down the wrong path, right? He went down the wrong path, younger than me. I always saw him as like a young, innocent cousin. And look at him now, and I covered that story. You know, I covered that story. So I try my best to not be biased in those type of situations where it's like that.
Absolutely.
I'll probably be biased in like a musical take. I'll be like, that song sucks, that movie sucks, you know, but that's just entertainment banter. But when it comes like serious matters in our community, I try my best to be like, hold up. Let's get to the facts. You know,
Yeah.
let's make these calls. Let's make these emails because people really do care about us. You know, we have
it.
kids.
I watch you guys, and I
appreciate
think you're very frank. I think you know, and that's the way to deliver. Yeah, I'll leave you with this. I'll tell you that this department in the city has given me a lot. I can't think about it. A kid who came from Colombia, didn't speak the language, joined the force, graduated from high school, recently married, wife pregnant, got an education, bachelor's degree, master's degree, teaching at 2 universities here in the state, Salve and Roger Williams, about community policing, cultural competency. I'm blessed, man. And so that's important to remember, that there's opportunities in this profession that who knows if I would have gotten it somewhere else, but the department gave me. So if there's young men out there that want to join, we'll welcome you, especially if you're going to come here and make a difference. So,
any last words, Chief, to well, actually, quick, what's the best, your favorite food in Providence? If you had to pick one.
Man, I don't want to hurt because I'm going to go tomorrow to another restaurant and be like, you didn't mention me, Oscar.
Where does the chief of police go to eat? What was your favorite?
I like my Dominican food, especially if I'm in the city of Providence. I like my rice, my carne asada, or like, con sazon. Like,
do you go anywhere specific a lot? Gran Parada or like?
La Gran Parada. Yeah, I go there. I also go to the other one on Prairie Avenue.
Yeah.
And he's gonna start shouting places out.
Yeah. And then obviously my Colombian roots, man. I'm in CF having my bandeja paisa.
Yeah.
And then obviously certain drinks. Morir Soñando, I like that. I like my music. I'm a salsero. I love Gilberto Santa Rosa. My favorite is Tito Rojas. Rest in peace. DMX. Love this. I know he's rough when he speaks, but he has a lot of notes. Rest in peace. Tupac Shakur was pretty good.
Yeah.
And so that's stuff that you just sit there and analyze and wonder why they wrote about this music. So
yeah.
So
are you a Dell's lemonade guy, or are you a damn Mr. Lemon? Like, what's your favorite lemonade?
I come over. Yeah, I'm a Dell's guy. Yeah.
You're a Dell's guy?
Yeah.
You like Dell's?
And I like the one on Hawkins too. Mr. Lemon. Yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah. But So yeah, that's me. I love soccer. I love boxing. Watching those matches. It's good stuff, man.
Listen, any last words to the people that are watching this out there, especially in Rhode Island? You being the chief of police of Providence. Any last words or message that you want to deliver to the people now to close out?
Yeah, no, I always remember that you got a great police department. I don't claim that we're perfect. If you have a problem with our office, come see us. But always please just, at least, show some respect and things like that when it's happening, so things don't escalate. And so obviously our officers are also expected to do the same thing in police in a professional manner. But always know that we care. We care about the city. Me personally, I care about the future of the city. I care about the future of our kids. And so, thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. Round of applause. Appreciate you for coming through. Chief of Police, my guy Oscar. Love him or hate him, guys. He came and he's answered the questions. He's very transparent. So that's what more can one ask for. And also, feel free to come by again. Like,
Please.
even if it's like a 5-minute stop. Like I always advise people, because we record every week. If you want to stop by, let's say during October, one week, hey, let's stop by that because I want to announce something. You want to say something for 5 minutes? The door's always open. Like you guys can come through. So I want to have that relationship where you guys, because I feel like it's very significant. You being the chief of police, if you come on here and say something, it gets digested way more stronger than like a press release. I'm telling you right now. Because people, the internet is where everything is at. So you got to meet people where they are. So I think that can help you guys and help us as a community.
Let us know, man. I'm an open door.
Yeah, because I'm tired of you guys getting trashed on the internet with no context. That's why I'm glad you answered the questions.
Context is always
need
needed.
to see this. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Listen, it's the hard conversation that I'm not God. I can't make miracles happen. So, but I definitely this is important. This is important.
Yeah.
Open door. Thank you.
Much love. Club Mission Podcast special episode. Love y'all. Rhode Island to the world. Peace. Much love. Cap.
They gon' love me for my ambition.